Hey, I want to ask you about Vince McMahon in this era. It's written in the torch that Vince is starting to delegate more here. Previously, hiring and firing power had been given to you when you were the head of talent relations. Now, of course, that's Johnny Ace. And of course, on the creative side, that's Stephanie. So in years past, people could go try to talk to Vince and get something changed. But now Vince is trying to be more deferential. So it's harder to talk Vince into something in this era. It's written in the torch that he would say things like, "That's not my department," and then send people to either Stephanie or Johnny Ace.
He did that. That's true.
What do you think of this strategy? For so long, you were the bad guy in the heat position, and you would hear these guys go do shoot interviews, and they'd say, "Oh, that's that fucking Jim Ross." Vince loved me, which always made me laugh. It's like very obviously good cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
But now he's doing it more for Stephanie and Johnny Ace. What do you think of him taking a step back and being deferential to Johnny Ace and Stephanie?
Well, I wore a lot of hats there, Conrad. My job covered a lot of territory and payroll, booking. I booked the house shows. I did the cards for all those years. Uh, and they were good years because we had Stone Cold and The Rock. I wasn't an idiot. I learned a few things from the Big Cowboy over the years, and just being a mark for wrestling, as I still am. Uh, I think he tried to lessen their load a little bit by more compartmentalizing what their job descriptions were. I don't think after he did it that he was ever, I don't know that he ever totally respected John. And he respected me because old school. And I had logic, common sense. At least I tried to have. And I had a great eye for talent, which I've always said I was a lucky son of a bitch. So but I did have a good eye for talent. I mean, the roster that we assembled in that Attitude Era, once all the strings are taken off, and okay, JR, go do your thing. Uh, Business speaks for itself.
Let's talk a little bit about what's happening with developmental. Johnny Ace is starting to get a plan, and one of the plans is going to be a new developmental territory out of Georgia. Of course, we know that he's been doing one with OVW, and there's probably going to be changes there. The main trainers have been Danny Davis and Jim Cornette. Lance Storm has been flying in to do some training.
And they all did a hell. Conrad, excuse me. They all did a hell of a job. Especially Attaboy to Cornette and Danny Davis. They ran a great promotion, and if you trace all the lineage of some of the biggest stars that we had over the years, their origins go back to Louisville. And so I got a lot of debt of gratitude to those guys. I love those guys. They treated me right, and they did what they said they were going to do. And in the era of brother, and all this other shit, getting somebody to keep their word and do what they say they're going to do was more rare than it needed to be.
We got to talk a little bit about Jody Hamilton. He's going to be the guy heading up Atlanta, and there was talk, at least once upon a time, that it might be Jody Hamilton and Bill Behrens. That winds up not being the case. What do you remember about Jody Hamilton coming into being a part of developmental? Some of our younger listeners may not know this, but big time famous old school promo, badass heel, the assassin, heavy set fellow, wore a mask. Maybe you saw him in WCW in the mid 90s, but maybe most notably, Nick Patrick's father. If you grew up watching Nitro, he was before your time, but Nick Patrick, the NWO ref, Jody Hamilton was his dad. And to this day, Nick Patrick's still running Deep South Wrestling. What can you tell us about Jody Hamilton here, Mr. Ross?
Jody Hamilton and Tom Ernesto were the assassins. They had a program with the Kentuckians, Luke Brown and Grizzly Smith, Jake the Snake's Rocket Robin's dad, Grizz. And they took that program, that booking, that tag match, to a multitude of territories because everybody wanted them because they drew money. when I interviewed for a job with Cowboy and Leroy McGurk, they had a picture hanging on the wall of Leo Voss, one of the great referees of all time, who taught me how to be a referee. Not that I was in that league, but bottom line, Leo's he's a stud. And Leo standing in the middle of the ring with the Assassins and the Kentuckians on either side of him, like giving them their instructions. But the beauty of it was the Tulsa Assembly Center, which was the biggest building in Tulsa at that time, you didn't see any empty seats. It was sold out. People turned away. So it drew money. And they did it the same program. They come on TV and the Grizzly would do a hard way from Jody Hamilton's right hand. And it was brutal and scary and crass, but it was real. There was no blading at that. There was blading going on, but not in that angle. They wanted to leave a mark, as they say. So, and they did. Stitches were involved every time. And then they played that up for weeks. And then finally, the two great teams met. There you go. Jody's in the middle. He's a big guy, 300 pounds. There's the Dean. I think that's Tom Renesto, the other guy. That's who his longtime partner was. He had different partners. But Jody was the foundation piece of the what at that time I thought was the greatest tag team I'd ever seen. And to this very day here in 2025, if you ask me to name my top 5 or 10 favorite tag teams, and I had a moment to go back and ponder that question, the Assassins would definitely be in the top 10, maybe top 5. They made an impression on me as a young kid that I never got over. It drew me into wrestling. The drama, the reality, the realness. It was easy for me to suspend my disbelief watching the Assassins. And they did. I'm not sure that Ole Anderson and Gene didn't get this from them. I don't know. Ole would deny it. God bless him. But I think that you watch the Andersons work that hammerlock thing. Well, that was the only body part they worked was the arm, and then use the hammerlock and tag in and out, tag out, drop knees on it, kick it, twist it, pull it, turn it, all kinds of stuff. But that's what, and that's how and it sounds boring now because all the flips and flops. We talked about Penta. He's not in a fraternity alone. There's a lot of guys that are like him that are probably wondering why him and not me. But boy, the Assassins are amazing. And Joe Hamilton worked in the WCW office at the CNN Center. He basically getting the extras for TV, and that was a big job. When he could get the information on how many he needed from the booking guys, which was lax. It's like some kid turning in his homework on time, which could be a rarity or not. Jody's a sharp guy. He was a sharp guy, had a lot of wrestling knowledge, had great experiences, had great success. See, if you see a wrestler that knows how to book his own program, you got something. You want to keep that guy because he can not only help book himself to the maximum potential drawing money, but he can also suggest ideas to the decision maker on other talents, programs, and skill sets.